Okay, I think I fixed the weird angle that my camera was propped up. Um, in case it's not fixed, just know that I only use the most high quality equipment for my YouTube channel and my followers. Only the best for y'all. As we near the end of this very cursed year of 2020, I wanted to do a wrap up of some of my favorite reads this year, as well as talk about some of the book releases I am looking forward to in 2021. I started this channel back in March of this year. That was when my state went into full shutdown, and despite being an essential employee and still having to go to work anyway, I thought it would be a good time to begin a YouTube channel. Obviously, I didn't update this channel as much as I had originally planned. I had a really strong start, but then I started to get behind on editing videos because I just wasn't happy with them. I have about 4 unedited videos that I just completely abandoned and you'll probably never see. But I learned a lot, and I'm going to be doing book videos a little bit differently moving forward. Instead of videos focused entirely on one book, I'm going to group about 3 to 4 books into a unifying category, and I am no longer looking to review every single book I've read, because that was just way too much for me to do. As of when I filmed this video, I have read a total of 24 books this year, which personally, that is probably the most I've read in one year ever. I wanted to highlight some of my favorite of those 24 reads, which was a really difficult decision, but I've narrowed it down to 3 books that really just stuck with me. The first being The City in the Middle of the Night by Charlie Jane Anders. This isn't the only book I've read by Anders this year, and in fact it was a close tie between this one and her other book, All the Birds in the Sky, which I did actually do an individual video review on. The City in the Middle of the Night is a sci-fi taking place on the tidally locked planet of January. It follows 2 main characters' perspectives, Sophie, an ex-college student after she is exiled to the dark side of the planet, and a closeted lesbian who is easily manipulated by her friend who she has feelings for, and Mouth, who is a vagrant looking for answers, as she is the sole survivor of her culture after the sudden death of her people. The book explores 3 different cities on the planet and various cultures, including a non-humanoid race of aliens that Sophie ends up bonding with. Anders does a fantastic job with establishing and exploring these cultures and how they are impacted by the unusual planet they live on. Intercharacter relationships are thoroughly explored and another prominent aspect of the book. All relationships, if needed to be boiled down to a single word, can be described as complicated or intricate. Even months after reading this book, just thinking about various of these characters' motivations stir emotion in me, which just shows the power of Anders' writing. This book is a must-read for fans of vibrant world building. Anders never disappoints in that aspect. Another top read for me was An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. This book was an appropriately grueling read and just absolutely blew me away. It's a science fiction that brings a dystopian society split by race onto a spacebound ship seeking the promised land. It's a brilliant mixture of Southern Belle aesthetics with advanced technology. At no point in the book do I forget the setting is a spaceship while maintaining outdated beliefs, behaviors, and fashions. This is not a happy book. That's not a criticism, but a statement. Solomon deeply explores racism, mirroring that of antebellum America. Terrible things happen to the main cast because of their position in society, because they are black. Nothing is sugar-coated, but neither is any of the gratuitous suffering. Solomon handles the gritty details with nuance, effectively relaying their horror without dwelling on specific details. As well as exploring racial issues, the book touches on trauma, mental illness, gender identity, sexuality, and neurodivergence. It is one of the most authentic analyses of humans in general that I have ever read, and that's why it's a top read for me this year. And lastly, The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. Of the young adult reads I've read this year, this is the one that works the best for me. At times the reading level felt a bit below me, but ultimately the story and execution made this a phenomenal read. The story follows teenage Romy, who is accidentally conceived and subsequently born on a generation ship heading towards Earth 2. After her parents' unexpected death, she becomes the sole resident of the ship, and years after learning to accept the mission alone, Romy learns that another ship has been sent out to join her. In the months leading up to their ship's union, Romy connects with Jay, the other ship's young captain. With her contact with Earth severed, Jay is the only person Romy can talk to, and slowly she finds herself falling for him. A lot of things worked for me in this book. I like how it started as a run-of-the-mill teenage romance and gradually shifts into a psychological horror. I found myself trusting despite my better judgment, along with Romy, and while certain plot points felt predictable, it was the execution and the journey that was the surprise. I think one of my issues with young adult is often the teenage characters don't act like actual teenagers, usually because the author is no longer a teenager themselves. But Romy's characterization was just so solid as a teen. James doesn't forget her age or her past, and she reacts very genuine to what an isolated teen would. I like that she clings to her favorite television characters to make up for the lack of human interaction, and that she uses fanfic to process her feelings. I like how she is so wide-eyed and trusting, as well as competent and knowing when it comes to maintaining the ship because she's literally spent her entire life on it. It's a well-executed coming-of-age story that never loses sight of the setting and circumstances in which our teenage hero exists in. It's definitely a book I wish existed when I was a teen, but I thoroughly enjoyed it as an adult. I'm generally excited about these. It's been an awful year, and I'm trying not to get my hopes up that just because 2020 is coming to an end, so will the pandemic. But knowing that these books will be heading my way next year is definitely a small silver lining. The Galaxy on the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is the fourth and final installment of the Wayfarer series, so it's a little bittersweet for me. I have so much respect for people who know when to end a series. I personally wouldn't have complained about having a few more books in the series, but I can respect that Chambers feels it is time to end it, and I look forward to what she does afterwards. As with every Wayfarer's installment, the book takes place in the same creative universe as the others, but following a new cast of characters. This one takes place on the planet Gora, an uninhabitable world with no air, no water, and which only serves as a galactic truck stop for ships passing through to higher populated worlds. Odd circumstances occur, trapping our three vastly different main characters on Gora. With all former Wayfarer books, they somehow relate to each other in subtle ways, usually with a character introduced first in one book and becomes the main character in another, or a relationship to a main character of another book. No names of the main characters have been disclosed yet for Galaxy Unground, and though we know they are all going to be different species, there's no hint to what aliens we might see in this book. So I'm curious to see if this book will have a character already familiar to us following that pattern. And being that it's the final book of this series, I wonder how, if at all, Chambers will make it a conclusive ending. Since all Wayfarer books don't need to be read in order to understand, they're very separate individual stories. The Galaxy on the Ground Within is coming out February 18th, 2021. And yes, I'm considering it a belated birthday present for me. Victory is Greater Than Death by Charlie Jane Anders. I talked about her earlier in this video, and she was one of the authors I discovered this past year. I liked her work so much that at this point I pretty much read anything by her. Victories is Anders' debut into the genre of young adult. It follows main character Tina, an alien disguised as a human on Earth. She is a clone of an alien hero, and from a young age, she knew she is expected to save the universe. But only once she begins the task she was created for, she realizes the heavy burden of her birthright. After reading City in the Middle of the Night, I'm really looking forward to reading yet another sci-fi by Anders. This one sounds like it's going to be a space opera, which already I love. But knowing Anders and how she always throws her own special twists on things, I'm really interested in seeing what her take on space opera is, and how she handles the unique challenges that comes with this specific genre. Victory is Greater Than Death is coming out April 13th, 2021. Simultaneous Times, Anthology 2, Science Fiction Anthology. This one I've probably been waiting for longer than the rest of the books on the list. pretty much since I bought the first anthology back in early 2019. The first anthology introduced me to a lot of new authors I follow now, and a good number of the stories in the anthology have also appeared in Simultaneous Times podcasts as dramatic readings set to music. My favorite from the first anthology has to be A Hard Day Hunting Dinosaurs by Brent A. Harris. After following the podcast for over a year now, I'm familiar with many of the repeat contributors, so I have a pretty good idea of who to expect in this anthology, and I'm just excited to see what new stories everyone has come up with. There's a really wonderful variety of styles and interpretations of the genre of sci-fi. Simultaneous Times Anthology 2 is coming out spring of 2021. Beetlejuice Dimmon by Jean-Paul L. Garnier. I've read a lot of Garnier's work this past year. He's one of the authors I discovered from my previous mention in Simultaneous Times. And though he is a very good science fiction author, Garnier particularly excels within science fiction poetry, which this book is a collection of. The longest and title poem, Beetlejuice Dimmon, is a poem about civilizations perishing in novas. The melancholic start to the collection sets the tone for the remaining poems. Compared to his 2019 publication, Future Anthropology, there's a huge difference in mood. Whereas Future Anthropology is curious and sings praises of exploration and discovery, Beetlejuice Dimmon appears to be mainly about loss, endings, and heartbreak. This one is kind of an honorary mention because it is coming out December 2020, not exactly a 2021 release, but I made these rules. I can do whatever I want with them. Beetlejuice Dimmon also comes with a free audiobook version that you don't need to have bought the book to have access to, with an original soundtrack by Red, Blue, Black, Silver and Field Collapse. Let me know in the comments what some of your favorite reads this year were and what are you looking forward to coming out in 2021. I'm not sponsored, this is purely a passion project, but if any of the mentioned books in this video pique your interest, I ask that you choose to support independent bookstores. Especially during the pandemic, small businesses are hurting more now than ever. Fortunately, with Bookshop.com, you can shop from the comfort of home while still giving business to independent bookstores. You can even pre-order some of the titles I mentioned off of Bookshop. I'll drop some links below. Thanks to all my friends who have supported me with this project and everyone new who has joined me. This is only the beginning for me and I look forward to what next year will bring. I hope you will all join me.